Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming. It's a real pleasure to see you all here. It's a little bit warm, but I think that the subject that we are going to cover today is so interesting that it will keep your attention definitely, I'm sure. So, well, the subject is the city as a living lab. This is extraordinarily important. This is a subject that is on the cutting edge of the current urban paradigm, because, well, we all talk about lean planning, agility, and all this kind of stuff, but we really have to make this instrumental. We really have to make it work for the governance, for the local governance, self-governance, well, to be all this, to be process-friendly, and all the innovations that we develop somehow have to be proved by people or even created by people. So let me introduce fantastic professionals. I'm really happy to do this. It's luxury to do this. Tuija Hirvikoski, the president of European Network of Living Labs, and Paul Manwaring, founder of IoT Living Lab and co-founder of City Innovation Exchange Lab, CityXL. They're going to talk a little bit about their work, 5 minutes each probably, and then we start Q&A session. We have only half an hour, so, but I'm sure we will cover most of the questions that you could be interested in. Thank you. Tuija, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, thank you for coming here, and we will certainly have a very interesting 30 minutes in the Moscow sauna. It's really, really hot here with the lights and everything. Okay, so my name is Tuija, and don't hesitate afterwards to go back to the slides, to contact me or my colleagues within European Network of Living Labs. On my first slide, I provided some links from where you can find more information, and particularly my personal connections, which are mainly within the European Commission and open science, open innovation related topics. As you can hear from my intonation, I come from your neighbor country, Finland, working for a Finnish university where we have been applying Living Labs method and developing them during the past 3 decades, which made, by the way, my university the most successful one in the whole country. So I trust it works, but of course I have to point there. Sorry for this. Can someone help me and take the next slide, please? Maria, can you translate and ask them to take the next slide, please? Because I wanted first to share some ideas about what is the difference between cities as test beds and cities as living labs. Okay, it's here now. So you have one of the definitions for living labs, but I want to emphasize that this is only one of the definitions. Politicians and scholars are very creative, and they come up with new notions, new names, new definitions. And on the top of the slide, if I remember correctly, I even refer to triple helix and knowledge creation mode 2, citizen science, and this type of phrases keep on coming. But with Living Labs, we always refer to the collaboration between citizens, cities or town halls, companies, and academia, putting the citizens into the center of the process. And I'm really, really happy to continue from what your mayor said just a while ago. It's all about making the citizens to feel happy about what the cities are providing for them. So to feel that I love my city because my city loves me. It takes 2 to tango, but in Living Labs we have more stakeholders, multidisciplinary, multi-stakeholder approach. Next slide, please. Now disappeared completely. Yeah, so now I need to stand up. Even though Living Labs is about iterative processes, I don't know how to draw an iterative innovation process, so that's why I use the innovation funnel as a picture to illustrate that we have many phases. And down there you see where test beds are. Test beds focus on prototyping, experimentation, validation, and pre-launch of a new product or service. But Living Labs they cover the whole process, starting with the question with the citizens: what is the challenge that we want to tackle? What are your needs? So it's changing the supply-driven approach to demand-driven approach. And surprise, surprise, it also shortens the way from research and service design to the actual market. That's why that is the beauty of the whole approach. So you create shared meanings, shared visions, shared learnings, and then at the end, shared value will be created, co-created among all the stakeholders. That is what I refer to when I speak about Living Labs. So citizens or end users are the actors of the process. We as citizens, we don't want to be treated as subjects or objects of anyone. We are the subjects of our own lives. That's why we try to develop the methods so that people will feel that they are emphasized and they feel empowered and they are motivated to join to the co-creation processes. It's not very easy, but it's doable. It's possible. The next slide, please. There. Again, in order to distinguish the difference between experimentation, testing, and co-creation, I wanted to come back to the co-creation definition and also emphasizing that it's not rocket science. It's all about actions, dialogue, transparency, agility, and flexibility in your processes. So often you have to forget the old way, the top-down way where you plan everything and then you execute. Because anything can happen when you have many different types of stakeholders. That's why you have to be ready to learn from your failures. So again, important thing, failures belong to cities as Living Labs. Then you correct, you learn, and you speed up. It will be faster. The faster you fail, the faster you can correct your mistakes. At my university, we always emphasize that services are designed with, for, or by the citizens. So sometimes it's important that researchers, scholars, and town halls and politicians step away and they provide the floor for the citizens. So, for example, in this beautiful park, there certainly are marvelous creative ideas that the citizens are jointly creating. We have to empower, we have to create this type of places and forums where people can meet, and that is how they can create their own things also. And my last picture will be about the new mode, which is really emphasizing the transition from closed innovation towards innovation networks and ecosystems. But we will continue with the questions later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tuija. Thanks a lot. Well, Paul, now the floor is yours. Please.
Hello, thank you. Great. Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate being here with a great group of people. I really want to thank Tuija. This is really important to emphasize that that living labs are all about people and how to engage people in meaningful ways. The IoT Living Lab started in 2015 with the City of Amsterdam as our founding partner to engage citizens in public spaces using interactive IoT technology. If I can get the next slide, that would be great. And also, recently we created CityXL, the City Innovation Exchange Lab, in late 2017. So I'm just going to provide a very brief history, but I'll just keep talking while they solve this problem. So in 2015, we worked with the city CTO office to come up with a way to create IoT infrastructure, public and open, in the city, so developers could test IoT infrastructure for Sail Amsterdam. Sail Amsterdam took place in August 2015. There were 2.2 million people, and during that event, for 4 days, people went around the center of the city of Amsterdam to look at the 55 of the tallest ships in the world. And there was an app. There were, I think, 68,000 downloads. And that app was enabled by beacons and by Wi-Fi sniffing and by geolocation and geofencing to send notifications to people about what was going on around them. And maybe I'll just keep talking because we only have 5 minutes. And so the IoT Living Lab was validated because there were so many interactions. There were a lot of insights. There was a lot of data. Oh, great. Okay, so since then, we've generated a lot of data, interactive data in public spaces. We've gathered a lot of partners. Specifically Amsterdam Smart City. Now they have over 5,000 members of their community and over 300 projects. Maak je stad means make your city, and that financed 36 initiatives, community initiatives with the city funds. And the City of Amsterdam now has over 40 prototyping projects. And now, next slide please. We, after all these different initiatives have gone forward to create the City Innovation Exchange Lab. The City Innovation Exchange Lab engages multiple cities, next slide please, in exchanging our best practices so that we can accelerate social impact globally. There's many living labs around the world. There's 27 living labs in Amsterdam. I just did a survey recently. There's hundreds of projects, so we need to share these projects so that we can accelerate impact and urban spaces with people in living labs as quickly as possible. If you just keep clicking. So the process is not too different. We use agile methodology. We engage in thinking workshops. We look at the problem first. It's user-centric design. We identify impact. And then we come up with some ideas. So recently we worked with Smart City Taipei, and they have a problem with housing. So if you click on that, what you'll see is Airbnb reviews over a period of I think 3 years identified that basically people were putting up places for Airbnb with multiple listings, which is not legal. That means people are making money off of multiple listings, and they found out that a lot of these listings, there were over 3 or 4 properties, and these were Chinese investors coming in and limiting the availability of property in Taipei. Then we borrowed a camera from them, if you click, and this camera actually, we wanted to, in Amsterdam, discuss how we can create a dialogue about surveillance versus service. So we created a specific zone, and we warned people that when they entered this zone, they were going to be videoed, and they were going to be harvest biometric data. And it's not just about data. If you click, it's also about people. So this girl, she saw the warning sign, and she steps outside. This is a living lab. This is right outside of our office. This is in the center of Amsterdam. And then we interview her, and we say, why do you step out of this zone? We get insights. So it's really about getting insights with public in public spaces, and then moving forward with informing policy, what technology is or is not good for the public spaces. And so now we're taking this camera to the University of Applied Sciences, and they're going to use this camera to create a baseline about social behavior in the center of Zuidoost, which is an area where they have a campus, to create interventions so that they can improve social interactions in spaces. So I don't know how much time I have left. 0? So now we're also working with Daegu and so on and so on. I could talk for a long time, but this is very important. De Kovel is a circular community in Amsterdam, and we're going to introduce a smart water meter there so that people can monitor their water use, and they're going to use cryptocurrencies to encourage them to save water and to use it more efficiently. We think that energy transition is very important, and engaging communities in energy transition experiments is equally important. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to all speakers. Let me start the Q&A session. I have one really challenging question for you both. The question is about time. As we all know, well, we plan cities for decades and centuries, right? And we plan cities for people, for the unborn, for people who actually will come to the city maybe in 30 years from now and who will be born. So we are now in minority. Whatever democracy we have, so we have fantastic local democracy, for example, in Finland and Holland, but we are still working with people who live now and who have their own interest now. And how your living laboratories, how your concept of living laboratories could help to figure out what will be needed for the unborn, what kind of instrumental process or conceptual kind of idea you have to address the issues that you don't know even what these issues are, will be. So planning for the unborn, this is my question, how Living Lab could actually help to do this, to solve this issue. Mm-hmm.
Okay, if I start, within ENoLL, we have hundreds of members, and those members have millions of citizens whom they are addressing with thousands of projects. Each project, each approach has to be tailored, but in general you can say that you have to, first of all, you have to have the courage, particularly if you are city mayor, to create a system where you start to listen carefully, different type of needs coming from the citizens. And if you don't hear anything, you have to activate the processes. For example, my home city, Helsinki, Kalasatama Smart Suburb is organizing monthly meetings with the local residents, asking them what are the current challenges, what are their dreams, and jointly with the local residents, they created the vision that their dream was that with the smart city approach, each citizen will save 1 hour per day. And I think it was quite interesting that some 20,000-30,000 people, either living or planning to move to that part of the city, jointly decided that the most valuable thing in my life, for my family, is time. So that's why let's start to, based on this vision, let's start to design the urban planning, the services. For example, mobility as a service is one of the examples that came out based on the vision. So what I want to emphasize is that it's extremely important that you create either workshops or hackathons or other meeting points with the people. But then, of course, we use also the data. There are all type of data, analyzing the data, and then you can get back to the people with that data, telling that our data is pointing out that these things seems to be taking place. Mm-hmm. But what do you say? Please advise us. So you combined scientific methods and co-creation workshops.
Just one clarification question to you. In this city, for example, if you ask people to vote about parking space, right? So, well, 100% will vote for the parking space, for more parking spaces here, etc. But in 15 years from now, it's going to be completely different mobility behavior. So if we invest now in parking space, in 15 years from now, that's going to be dead space. So what would you recommend to people who actually would like address issues of nowadays, but these issues are no longer be relevant maybe in 15 years' time?
So there it's a joint learning process. As a city mayor or civil servant or as a researcher, it's your job to bring this type of challenges to the table. Asking the people that, do you want that your grandkids will not have any playgrounds? Do you want that your children will suffer from this and this type of problems? Of course, I'm exaggerating, but you are bringing the facts for the co-creation session so that people will jointly create meanings and understanding about what kind of things they want to have now and what will be the consequences in long term. And I trust people are quite educated, and if you help them to get the point, they will quickly realize that, okay, it might be in short term, it might be good to have the parking slots and avenues all occupied for cars. But in long term, everybody will suffer from that.
Thank you very much. Paul, what's your take on that?
Well, very practically, the city of Amsterdam and the tradition in the city of Amsterdam is learning by doing. So it's called the polder process. So we reclaimed a lot of land from the sea. So we had to do this by experimenting and engaging the public. This is a 400-year tradition. Now, what we do with technology is we apply technology in living labs and test them with the public as soon as we possibly can. When we test them with the public, we engage the public in a dialogue. Just like with the camera vision and surveillance versus service. This is a new dialogue, but it's a dialogue that has to begin now so the city can form policy so that then they can provide services and improve people's lives, and also engage the public in how to do that with the public, with co-development processes, agile processes, because when you employ a living lab and you engage the public in these dialogues, it's a two-way street. It's a feedback mechanism, and this is much faster than traditional top-down social engineering practices. Modernism is not the answer. Engagement is the answer, and being agile.
And to clarify your answer, do you think, the participation process slows down the planning process, the governance process, or it's not a problem at all? Because, for example, in this country, in this town, people were given 3 weeks to vote about their relocation from the place where they live under the renovation program. Just 3 weeks, right? Whether you want to stay or want to leave, etc. So in terms of your experience, how much time does this kind of dialogue require? Months, years, weeks?
It depends on the technology and the interaction. The level of interaction is really, it can inform, in the case of Sail Amsterdam, because the scale was huge and the user base was also very, very connected. 68,000 people in 4 days create a lot of data. And then taking that data and then using that as a way to create a meaningful dialogue about policy. Do people want to be told where to go and when? Do they want to be watched and guided around the city to make the city safer, or do they not? It's a great place to start. With several technologies, it's really just about starting, and starting as quickly as possible, engaging that dialogue with the public, and then as you engage the public in that dialogue, listening and reacting. It's an ongoing organic process. It never stops. That's the short answer, I suppose.
But am I right to say that learning process, dialogue process, actually relatively slow, and we have to accept that, right?
I think you are really hitting the most fundamental questions in our societies. of course, when we use e-governance, e-participation tools, you can speed up the processes for individual minor decisions. But then I just want to provide you one example, which can be found from the rest of my slides also. In Finland, we converted Finnish schools into living labs. In order to, even kindergarten kids are invited already, in order to teach the citizens what co-creation is about. So actually you are already now educating the next generation of decision makers and people who will be voting. So it's really, I agree with you, it's an ongoing process. But then again, sometimes we have to make agile decisions. And for that, e-participation, e-governance, even e-budgeting, creating processes where citizens can participate the city budgeting process. So there you can make minor decisions in short run. Or, for example, if you are experimenting converting your healthcare center into a place where new health-related solutions will be experimented. So normally our agile pilots, they are from 3 months, maximum 6 months. But then when we are speaking about more fundamental questions involving thousands of people, so you need to change your way of thinking, your mindset, not just bringing the tools and in order to have a shortcut.
Thank you. I think we have only several minutes left. So, my final question will be about the investment choice, right? So we know that many big corporations that are responsible for innovation, they invest a lot of money in innovative infrastructure, but the problem is that this innovative infrastructure is getting old very quickly, right? So, and sometimes it even hinders the development of something completely new that was developed at the grassroots level. One of the examples that actually struck me really was from London. The Greater London Authority and London Transportation Authority would like to actually build the speed railroad between Birmingham and London to reduce travel time by 15 minutes, just 15 minutes. Instead of 2:20, it's going to be 2:05, right? So, and it's about £16 billion project. The alternative that was suggested by people, £16 million, it's just to improve the Wi-Fi connections in the coach, maybe work a little bit on the coach design and let people work extra 15 minutes in the train, right? So this kind of stuff. Do you feel the same kind of contradiction between the big corporations lobbying for this extraordinary expensive innovative infrastructure and something that can be done at the grassroots level, which is way low in terms of costs, and sometimes it's much more efficient? Am I right to actually highlight this kind of contradiction?
Can I start on that?
Sure.
I'm very passionate about this. Governments have to be really careful how they invest in public infrastructure these days, especially when you're talking about the smart city ecosystem. The large companies, and I'll say their names, the Googles, the Microsofts, the Ciscos, are investing huge amounts of money in lobbying cities to take on their technologies and their solutions. They take several years to implement, and by the time they're done, they may be obsolete. These are hundreds of millions of euros usually, and will prove in the future to be a waste of money. We have got to, as cities, remember that our primary job is to ensure social infrastructure and justice for our public. Therefore, the better investment is to invest in a dialogue with the public and enable communities to create their own problems. It's a paradigm shift between top-down, structural hierarchy, decision-making, and problem-solving, to functional hierarchy, bottom-up, user-centric design. In the future, communities and individuals will have the ability to solve their own problems because technology has been democratized and is cheap or free. This is a more responsible way, and it will future-proof the cities in a time when technology is moving too fast to actually build infrastructure.
So there maybe we can already see symptoms of some type of transition from pure smart cities towards something which is more citizen cities or really human-centered smart cities.
Thank you very much. I think we exhausted our time. It was very interesting discussion and definitely answers and presentation. Thanks very much for coming here and for presenting your views. I think we should give the applause to the speakers, right? So.